I know that it's been not an easy battle for you. I know that you've had various stages of this. I think at the beginning you trusted the system, didn't you?
I did. I think naively I trusted the system. I thought there was some level of justice, and as I've gone through the system, I've realized that that does not, or has not occurred, although my hopes are still there. I think that with more and more knowledge, there's the ability to bring justice to a situation for our kids. But again, you know, when we're talking about family, I don't think the environment or the paradigm of family in a courtroom, even though it's based on property law, from what I understand, that's not the environment to determine parent-child relationships, although historically for a long time it has been. But hopefully in some number of decades we'll look back at this time and we'll, scoff and go, God, that was pretty primitive of our society.
The dark ages of family court.
The dark ages of how we dealt with family, you know. And I would imagine probably the judiciary doesn't like it to some extent. I would imagine they don't like the emotion. They would rather deal with other civil law matters.
Right.
And from my exposure of some of the judiciary, it seems like that's what they do most of the time. And then when they come across a family law case, oftentimes they themselves don't know all the different stats, different sections of the family code.
Yeah, I remember one case that I was at in particular, Parker County, Judge Graham Keesenberry. There was an attorney who was sitting beside me because he was coming up. He said, "This judge doesn't know the law, doesn't know the Texas Family Code."
No.
And I mean, it was interesting because when it was there, it wasn't a shocker. It was a shocker, but it wasn't a shocker. But the judge just did whatever he wanted to, no accountability whatsoever,
Right.
And caused great damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think one important aspect of what I've seen is if you kind of review some of the cases and the different judges involved in different cases, and some are well publicized, and like in the Austin Statesman of Judge such and such making this determination or saying, this or that is unconstitutional or constitutional, and the other party can't do that. I mean, in various cases, fundamental rights are supported, but you don't see that as strongly supported when you go into family law.
Right. Right.
Which it should be.
Yeah. David, I just want to thank you for coming up here. It was a pleasure to see you once again. Thank you for driving up. The long trip, 3 hours it took you?
Oh yeah, it flew by pretty fast. It was no inconvenience at all. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being one of the people out there that's fighting. Again, we don't wish the curse of the family court on anybody, but there are certain people that we personally, I say, well, I'm glad that they've decided to pick on him, because you have the ability, I think, the knowledge, the backbone to fight this thing, and we hope to expose the fraud of our family courts. And Alissa Sherry, I think that the evidence is pretty clear. She's a fraud. Marshall Thompson, I think the evidence is pretty clear that he's engaging in fraud. Some of these judges, again, it's personal opinion, I believe that they have colluded with the fraud. We need to take these fraudulent family courts, expose them. And our legislature, who's responsible for some of this stuff, needs to understand that they are empowering, enabling, and facilitating the fraud of our family courts. This upcoming session, I've seen some of the legislations coming out, or some of the bills that people are proposing. I cannot believe the level of ignorance that I see at times, and how these people have been bamboozled by divorce attorney lobbyists, by people in the Family Law Foundation, by people that are fraudulent from my perspective, like these child custody evaluators and attorneys that'll go and testify down there. So David, I'm glad that you're one of the people that are fighting back against the fraud of these family courts. Be with you 100%. If there's anything that we can do, let us know, because we have to expose this system and give parents a hope for justice, because right now, as you said, you started off like I did. We actually believed in the courts. We believed in justice. And I remember telling one judge recently, said, you know, if you can get my level of confidence in the courts up to 0, because right now it's like, if you can get up to 0 in the next 2 years, you will have done a lot. That's how bad these courts are.